Welcome to the show, everyone. I have David here, and we're going to provide some great value on multiple topics, specifically the fitness, the health, and we'll see where else we go. So thank you so much for your time, David. I'm excited to be speaking with you.
The pleasure is all mine, Justin.
Awesome. So the first question we'll start with is, how do you stay consistent with your fitness?
Well, it's an extremely easy for me, actually, because previously I was severely obese and it was extremely hard for me to start exercising. But once I got the ball rolling, I just couldn't go about my day without, and at least some form of exercise, because I would just feel dirty, as if I didn't take a shower or something. It just has to be done no matter what.
And that's the power of a exercise routine in general. Once we get ourselves into it, it becomes something we need to do, not even a want, but it is a fundamental aspect of feeling good. And of course, that's what we're all going for.
Yeah, there is a big correlation between physical health and mental health. No matter what, all the woke mobs might be saying, there is a big correlation.
And when did you really notice that what you were doing when you were obese needed to change?
Well, my motivation for even changing anything in the first place was meeting a girl, actually, funnily enough. And I liked her to the point that I started to do something about myself, even though nothing previously ever worked. My parents were trying to get me to do something. My friends were trying. I myself never had, any need or motivation to do it. But once I met this specific girl, I started to do something about it. So yeah, that's it, I say.
It's interesting how there can be many different reasons why we pursue our best self, but hey, whatever reason gets you to at least reflect and realize you have room to improve, that's amazing. And whether it's a girl or your own self-talk or you feeling purely like shit, there's a plethora of different things that are going to push us to grow. But once you realize the potential that you have, there's no ceilings.
Well, the thing with feeling like shit, I was not aware that I even was feeling like shit, because that was my baseline. You are not aware how shit you are feeling until you realize how good you can feel afterwards, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. That's a question I ask myself often, because there is a lot of people I try to influence and help, but when they don't even realize that they could feel better, it's so challenging to get them to start working on themselves. So we should kind of introspect deeper with that. How do we get people who do not realize they can feel better? How do we get them to start working on themselves?
Well, that's a tricky question, because honestly, I'm not sure myself, because there's a different motivation for everybody, I'd say. Like for me, the final nail of the coffin was, meeting a girl I liked, but for somebody else, it might have been, I don't know, severe health issues or severe mental problems. I'd say it depends. It's different depending on every person, I'd say.
Right. And with that difference, and we're all unique, but we all are connected. What I mean by that is vitamin D from the sun, it directly helps all humans. Getting outside and being in nature, breathing fresh air, being unplugged is an active meditation. If you're walking, whether you're swimming in a river and you see the water glistening and the beauty, or you see the colorful birds, there is so much to be appreciated. And there are so many differences, but by working with the routine, not the right word, more so the aspects of life that all humans can use to improve. I feel that is the foundation we should really look at when trying to teach people, hey, you can feel better. And this is maybe a few ideas you should look into.
Well, the thing that I noticed with a lot of people actually is that they have a fixed mindset. They already think that's the way they are, that's finished, that's it, they can do nothing about it. Like they have this, it's part of their identity at this point. That's they're the depressed guy, they're the fat guy, or they're the porn addict. And that's, there's this, that's their part of themselves that they cannot change no matter what, even though that's completely untrue. But it's on them to actually realize that, and they can realize that by actually starting to do something. But the trickiest part is to actually start doing something.
Yeah, that fixed mindset is a very challenging thing to get through to people when they don't or are not willing to question themselves, to ask, am I doing my best right now? And if someone doesn't want to learn, you can't force things upon them. That will almost drive them to dislike you more, even when your goal is to make them happier, healthier, and smarter. So it is a very tough thing to go through when you're surrounded by, whether it's family, people who you very much care for, that you see from your point of view are struggling. They're not managing their mood. They're not eating the right foods. They're actually consuming processed foods. Who knows? They could be addicted to porn, which all of this really goes into your self-image and how you view yourself. And I love this idea. If you don't love and take care of yourself, why would anyone else care or love you besides your mom? Really, we have to internalize this principle. Even when you're married or in love with your partner, your biggest purpose cannot be simply for them. It must be outside of yourself to serve the whole world, to be your best self.
Yeah, definitely. But one thing that people often forget is that relationships by themselves are a value exchange. Like the more you have to bring to the table, the more value the other person gets out of you. And the same goes vice versa. And if you aren't doing anything about yourself, then you are, this might sound harsh, but you are simply less valuable as a person. And if the sooner you accept that, the sooner you will start to improve your life in every single aspect.
I like the idea of viewing it as a value exchange. Truly, that is what it is. And of course, at the same time, it is much deeper than that. But to understand, if I am not working to grow, if I'm not always learning continuously, my value is dwindling. Another idea that speaks to me is you're either growing or you're dying. So that is something that the people who are not looking to improve, who are very complacent, whether it's because distractions like video games, porn, indulging in, who knows, alcohol, beer, there's so many distractions in our lovely world today that people become trapped in the prison of their own minds and their habits, which is a very interesting idea. Hundreds of years ago, it was survival or you die. And now you can survive, but you're not even living. You're more so existing.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to, I will assume you have seen The Matrix, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, people are simply, it's as if they were all living in pods and just not living, but existing. Because how can you call something like that a life even? To just go by their day, not doing anything remarkable, get back from work, watch some TV and go to sleep. And that's how most of the days of most people go by.
And you wonder why suicide rates, mental health, depression, all these things are rising. It's not because humans are are lost without pharmaceuticals, it's because we are not doing the fundamental things that humans are supposed to do, which leads me back into the importance of sunlight, the importance of exercising, eating whole foods, having deep conversations like this. We are actually involving ourselves in something so complex by intently listening. And this act of having a good conversation is really maximizing the capacity of our brains rather than being a professional fucking consumer. That is the best way to describe the average human today, just a huge consumer.
I'd say that having a deep, profound conversation is just as productive as going out to the gym, in my humble opinion.
It is, again, linking our body and our mind. And I agree with that point. You need a balance. It's the most powerful or influential humans are the ones who harness their focus with their brains and also maximize their physical health at the same time. Someone who can defend themselves and as along with being physically capable, articulate their knowledge and wisdom in a profound manner, you are a high level human if you can do that.
I don't know who said this quote, but some philosopher said something along the lines of, if you have a nation where all the warriors are stupid and all the big thinkers, the smart guys are small cowards, then you will have all the thinking in a nation done by cowards and all the fighting done by fools, and you don't want that.
I like that quote a lot. And it seems not, it's a very interesting thing how my perception a month, 2 months ago, before I found the beautiful Twitter space of individuals who are looking to help others grow, learn, and be their best. Before that, I had a skewed perception that most people were obese and consumers, not aiming to be better. But now my mindset has shifted a bit because I've come in connection with so many high achieving people who are just trying to enjoy life and at the same time share their experiences. I'm coming to the conclusion that the mainstream has done a very good job at making us seem like we're alone. But the truth is that at least 7 out of 10 people really are looking to be their best. Maybe that is a bit of a high ratio, but I don't know. I'm coming into contact with so many people who are working their asses off to just be at their most proficient capacity.
Well, we might be venturing into conspiracy theory space here, but I'm just going to say that a nation divided is much easier to control.
Yeah, and the term conspiracy theory, it's amusing because the government made that term up, and it was made up to specifically target free thinkers. And school, I know you're in university, which I'm curious about, but the way that our school systems are set up is such a factory-like thing, a factory in a way where there's little freedom to look into the individual's, the children's passions. Every kid is taught the same thing. Rather, if it was my decision, I would implement some sort of freedom to, okay, you're in 6th grade. What are your top 5 passions? And maybe we can help you learn and look into those passions. Rather, it is such a structured curriculum that teaches you what to think and not at all how to think.
You're spot on with the education system. And I'm going to say that even though I am currently in university, I absolutely despise the education system because what it does, honestly, what I've learned in uni after 2 years, I could have learned by myself at home in 2 months. And besides that, the education system isn't, created to, allow you to learn, develop, and all that. It's the entire purpose of the education system is to churn out more slaves and more workers so that you can live a meaningless existence and die. That's just my humble opinion, though.
Again, I for a long time thought only my perception was this way, that no one else saw through the corruption of this factory system, that that's exactly what they're producing. Humans who are chasing a lifestyle of, once I get this car, once I get this house, I'll be happy. In reality, that is not how happiness is formed. It comes from inquiring inwards, making sure you're physically healthy. And money is an amazing tool. It really is not something to be overlooked. We need money to be our best selves, but to get all your value from your 9 to 5, from your labels, your status, your materialistic goods, it is such a narcissistic style of perceiving life. And that is exactly what the factory system of our schooling creates.
Couldn't agree more, 100%. And the only reason why I'm still in university is just because I started, so I might as well finish. But honestly, if I could, I would drop out tomorrow because I have some better things to do, honestly. But I'm like, you have the podcast, for example, you help guys with their self-development. I have my Twitter where I also help guys turn from, from spurgs to actually these decent looking guys. And that's my passion. I want to help guys look their best. And that's what I want to focus my all on. But going to university and learning things that are honestly useless to me is inhibiting that in all capacity.
Right. And I like your mindset. You got into it. You are someone who is going to finish it, but you see right through the system and you found a passion that, what a coincidence. For so many people, I've noticed the most fulfilling work comes from the service of others. And I think it's very important for men to figure out how to sculpt their body and their features into a way that is aesthetically pleasing, because whether you want to accept this or not, and prayers to all the people who are in wheelchairs, all the people who have facial structure issues from birth, because I was blessed to not go through any of those hardships. But here's an example. In high school, I had so much acne and my self-image was just dog shit. The only reason I was not miserable completely is I had an athletic feature. I played football and that gave me a bit of confidence. But from the aesthetic appearance of myself, oh man, people would have looked at me and they make this the split second judgment. They judge you very quickly. And not to say that when you see someone who has facial issues that you look down upon them, but it's just a very innate judgment. It occurs quickly. And my self-image was nothing. I felt like trash. And to know how to actually shape and build your body, your appearance into the person you'd like to be, that is going to build your confidence. It's going to help you attract the person that you ideally want to be with. And it has nothing but benefits in the long run.
Yeah, definitely. I'm of the mindset that the best way to build confidence is to raise your own value. And one of the ways that you can do that is to improve your appearance. The other ways can be things like, getting more wealthy, becoming more charismatic, getting smarter, just generally raising your value as a person. It's the best way to build confidence.
Right, because even if you do look good, but you're poor and broke, you're going to be missing and lacking something. So that brings me into the importance of balance. We must mm, pay attention to all areas of our life, how we communicate, our wisdom, what we put out, our physical health, our nutrition, etc. There's so many areas that need attention. If you put all your energy or effort into simply your business, kind of like our mainstream education system wants you to do, they really preach go to your 9 to 5 and embody your 9 to 5. That's who you are. Rather, we should have a abundance of value provided from different areas, not just our job, which is money. You need a balance in life.
Yeah, focusing on one thing only is definitely not going to do you any favors. Like you have these gym bros, for example, that their entire life is the gym. That sure they might have sculpted a Greek god physique, but at the same time they've never read a book in their lives. They don't have 2 dimes to rub together. They only have like, I don't know, $50 in their bank account. So they only have the physique, but everything else is lacking. It's your job as a man to fill the other buckets up to just as much as you can, the one that you want to focus on. It might be the money aspect for you, it might be the fitness aspect, but whatever it may be, you have to do your best to be not a jack of all trades, maybe, but to be the best jack of all trades that can be, like the jack of all trades of the jack of all trades.
Right. I hear sometimes people shoot down that term. You should only focus on one thing and not be a jack of all trades. And that's where we can get into the fine balance of picking a few areas that you will put a lot of energy into. Personally, I spent 2, maybe 3 years investing so much of my time into learning about the stock market. And now I'm confident with my stock market skills, and that is not what I'm putting most of my time into. And now it's something I have in my back pocket, but I'm putting more time into reading and physical health and communication currently. So there's a way that you become a jack of all trades. You really focus in on one skill or a few areas. And after you become proficient in those areas, you can pivot to something else that you really want to pursue.
It's this idea where you fill one cup up to its entirety, and once the cup is overflowing, you use what is overflowing to fill up the next cup. That's the way I like to think about it.
Yes, that is a good way to put it. And that brings me to the quote, you cannot help others, you can't fill someone else's cup without taking care of yourself first. So that often people will become people pleasers. In high school, that's what I did a lot. I got my value from how other people viewed me rather than now. I'm sure you see it as well from your whole journey of being out of shape to being in shape. You know your value. Your confidence comes from what you do every day rather than, oh, did Jason say that I did well today? Now I'm happy. That is not the way to go about life.
Yeah, I often say that happiness comes from your own self-worth, not the validation of others.
A lot of philosophers, I'm not sure if you study philosophy, I think you do, but the philosophers say that you have to conquer yourself before you can go about helping others. And it's not some people, some toxic people would claim that to be selfish, but it's not as if you're doing everything solely for you. It's with the bigger vision that if I'm not taking care of myself, how can I help other people in the first place?
Yeah, you definitely have to fix your own issues before you can tackle on issues of somebody else. Like there's one quote that I really like. Not sure who said it, but it goes something like this: branches that reach heaven cannot reach heaven if the roots don't descend down into hell.
I tweeted that this morning. I can't believe you brought that up.
I didn't notice actually. That's pretty
I
cool.
I know what it. I don't believe that was a coincidence that we're both consuming that type of information. I it, I don't believe in coincidences anymore. That's a funny thing.
Me
And,
neither, brother.
and it goes into that conspiracy theorist. No, not really. It's more so I believe in the universe and you get signs. And it's very interesting how everything unravels. I'm like the polarities of life. You need to go through a phase of depression, a phase of being unworthy and viewing yourself as nothing to really grow into the person that you're supposed to be. It's very interesting.
100%. Like as a man, you have to go through your own. Like we don't have trials anymore that are done when a boy reaches adulthood that like has been done in the past. So you kind of have to do this on your own. And for many young men, it's through their fitness journey. At least that's how I began my self-development journey. For somebody else, it might be something different, but we have to create our own trials that turn us from boys to men.
And that brings me in back to I sometimes wish that I lived in a different era, more of a hunter and gatherers thing. But then I take a big picture view, and the technology is a blessing and a curse. Our lives are so quote unquote easy, but with the ease comes hardship that we didn't have to go through in the past, like overthinking and being trapped in the prison of your own mind. It's our job to put ourselves through personal challenges because the tribe isn't there anymore to give us that, okay, you're 16, time to go through this, and now you're a man. And another big thing that I'd love to speak on is the pandemic of fatherlessness. There are so many young men who grow up without fathers. Me personally, my dad was around until I was 12, 13, but even until that age, he was never really around. He didn't teach me values. He made me breakfast, did small things and everything, but bottom line, he was a drug addict for a long time, and now he doesn't speak to anyone. And he gave me that quote a couple of years ago. He's trapped in the prison of his own mind. And it's just rough for young men who do not have mentors and people to teach them, hey, you need to build your confidence. You need to stand up for your values. When you're not told these important things, you turn into a soft person who is at the bottom line unhappy.
Well, I am in a very privileged position because my parents were both present and are both still together till this day. And they are extremely loving. I have nothing bad to say about them whatsoever. But I am aware that at the same time, I am a severe minority. That I am one of very few that actually can have that privilege. And yeah, the biggest thing that you said, it's more so about the lack of mentors than fathers, because many men may have fathers, but they aren't doing their job correctly, I'd say. It's more so the lack of male role models that are teaching the masculine virtues, the masculine values that allow boys to turn into men in the first place. Because a lot of fathers these days, they have really no say around the household. They allow their wives to essentially rule over them and so on and so forth. It's more so the pandemic of weak men, if anything, if you ask me.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. The pandemic of weak men. And that's come from men who our past two generations, man, have been left astray. What I mean by that is the government has so clearly manipulated everything, meaning the foods that they claim to be healthy are actually unhealthy. And cancer is such a huge business. It's cringes me to say that, because I know so many who have passed away due to cancer, but it does not it's not a natural thing. Cancer is a man-made thing that is sourced from primarily what people consume. The processed foods. Here's a funny thing to ponder about. Why are people spraying our vegetable fields wearing hazmat suits? That blows my mind. And then people go and consume the vegetables, but the people are wearing hazmat suits. Like, bringing this back to the two generations that were left astray, my parents and my grandparents. And thankfully, we are the generation that is coming back to reality, because social media has been able to combine so many great minds who see through the government corruption. And it's creating a healthy generation that, although there is the abundance of distractions with the phones and the TikTok, the short attention spans, we are figuring out how to be healthy, how to be smart, how to share information, and to speak about topics that we may not always agree upon, but to maintain a professional manner, rather than the woke mentality of, if you don't agree with me, I'm going to slander you. I will label you. You're a bigot. You're a racist. You're a white supremacist. That was a big rant by me, but I'm sure you picked up some points to speak on.
Yeah, I love your point about cancer. It's definitely not something that you magically catch from the sky. It has to come from somewhere. And it comes from leading a shitty, unhealthy lifestyle for the most part. And I'm pretty damn sure that it's extremely easily curable, but any information about that is likely suppressed by the government, because it's in a much better interest for them to milk you out of your money than to simply give you a cure.
Well, a patient cured is a customer lost.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's man, it's powerful to be able to speak upon these truths, because the more humans who do come to that realization that there is so much good in our world, but there's a lot of corruption at the same time. Most of it is just big corporations trying to make money, rather than the cure is for free. The cure is, well, not completely free, but a lot of the things are free, meaning getting sunlight every day, getting in nature. I just watched this documentary yesterday called Grounding, and like so many health aspects, to the average Joe, it seems wishy-washy. But I've tried it out, and it's not a placebo effect, because the studies in the documentary were done with babies who were not conscious, who were not able to comprehend what a placebo effect is. But getting your bare feet on the raw earth, not pavement, not rubber, but the real dirt and grass, that has a electromagnetic connection that you will immediately have less inflammation in your body if you get your raw feet onto real nature. And I'm not saying that that is a one cure, it's going to fix all cancer, but the combination of drinking water that doesn't have contaminants in it, avoiding aluminum in your deodorants, getting sunlight daily, exercising, and staying away from seed oils, staying away from processed foods. If you combine all these aspects of health, you're going to be prime. You'll be like the healthiest possible version of yourself.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you mentioned. However, it is extremely difficult to do all that because the average person isn't aware about 90% of those things. Like most people know about processed foods, that they are not good for you. But for example, the thing with seed oils, like our corner of Twitter is aware of the dangers of seed oils, but the average person has absolutely no idea about that, for example. And the thing with going barefoot onto raw earth, even less people know about that. So it's extremely hard, to convince a lot of people to even do those things, because there's a lot of people who ask for sources and all that, but there are none.
Right. And that's where it's our job to lead by example in a way where uh, I do wish more celebrities would focus on the health aspect, but of course, a lot of celebrities are completely funded for and honestly owned by other corporations who tell them what to say and what to think. So it's our job to build a unique audience who is interested in health. And you're right on. Heck, I didn't know about this grounding thing until yesterday, but I watched the documentary, I tried it, and I feel it. And the word feel is powerful because you can tell people about things. Yeah, they'll listen, but until you feel something yourself, that brings us back to you don't even know you could feel better when you're stuck in this phase of living for the weekends and drinking beer all the time, not exercising. If you don't know things can get better, of course, you're going to stay with your limited beliefs in that small framework. So we have to be we have to plant seeds. And okay, if some people don't want to work for their better selves, that's okay. But at least we're planting seeds. And you know what? There are going to be people who are open enough to try these things. It's not going to be everyone, but we are making a difference by at least planting the seeds.
At the end of the day, you cannot save everybody, but if our teachings can even save a few people, then it's 100% worth it in the end.
And that's the perception that's important. It's you can't save everyone, but if we help one person, that is exactly what we're looking for. So, what does exercising do for your self-image?
What does exercising do for my self-image? Well, first of all, since it makes me feel better, it also makes me look better. So my self-image just helps in a sense that if I look better, I feel better. And therefore, my entire journey started with exercising in the first place. So even though I'm running this business on Twitter currently, it's still fitness is literally everything for me. It's the most important thing in my life, because without it, I wouldn't be where I am today, like in any way whatsoever.
It is the fundamental. We spoke on this. Your mind and your body are linked. And even if you have all the money, you have a good CEO status, if you're fat and unhealthy, that is going to catch up with you, whether it comes in diseases or just you actually look in the mirror and realize, wow, I don't look good. The health, the exercise, the fitness, they're so tightly intertwined. And that's why the main thing that I speak on is having a balanced life. You can't overlook any aspect.
Yeah, definitely. The way that I always explain it is like this. You want to be a philosopher that also happens to have a sick deadlift.
And that is very true. You want to be a person who is both articulate in the wisdom, but at the same time, you're not a little nerd who is scared of everyone. That's the best of both worlds when you're strong and intelligent. I don't think there's anything more important than balancing those two.
Yeah, definitely. And also, it ties into one thing, like people are bullied, right? But it will sound harsh, and I was bullied myself as well in childhood, but if somebody is bullied, there's kind of a reason for it. Like you wouldn't be bullied if you weren't fat. You wouldn't be bullied if you didn't look like a nerd. Like it happens for a reason. If that makes sense.
Yes, and I want to be gentle with that topic because there is a large amount of bullies who are so insecure that they bully simply to push their insecurity upon other people. But at the same time, your point is valid. If someone's calling you a fat ass every day, maybe you should do something about that. Okay. If and there's a fine line because some people will bully birth defects that someone wasn't even able to control, and that's that bully just pushing their insecurities upon others. But if a bully is talking trash to you about something that is in your control, you may not be able to change it instantly. Almost anything worth changing can't be changed instantly, but let that fuel of their rudeness be what you use to improve yourself. Using the hardships in life to grow, for me personally, the fatherlessness thing is why I am such a driven individual today. I want to be sure I raise my family with a strong role model who is not just a father, but someone who is really leading by example every day.
Well, that is our natural purpose in life as men, to be great fathers, to spread our seeds and to grow quality children, to the best people that they can be. That's our natural purpose, but it has kind of been taken away from us in recent times. So we have to find other outlets to, to pour our passions into.
So, what are some of your favorite outlets that you get a lot of positive energy from, but at the same time, they're not easy? They do require hard work.
Well, outlets are worth pursuing, are only hard in the beginning, in my humble opinion. Like for example, starting a business is hard, but running a business once it's already going, easiest thing on the planet, much easier than a 9 to 5. Same thing with fitness. Once you're starting, when you're fat, for example, it's extremely hard. It's extremely taxing on your body. But once you get used to it, a month or two passes, it's an easy thing, and it's the highlight of your day. And it's the same with anything worth pursuing, in my humble opinion.
Man, that's an interesting point that brings me to the combination of making a sacrifice, which I do not every day, but 6 days a week. I wake up at, okay, let me rephrase this. 7 days a week, I wake up at 4:30 in the morning, but I don't lift every day. Point being, it's not super easy to wake up and go to the gym at 4:30. But once I do it, it is the highlight of my day, like you said. And it's hard. Going to the gym, lifting weights is hard, but it is much easier than being fat and worthless and viewing myself as someone who has no value. So I love the idea, the quote, choose your hard. Do you want to be rich? Do you want to be poor? They're both terribly challenging. So how about you go and be rich? And going into that business idea, starting a business is hard, just like starting the gym is hard. But once you get flowing with these things, it becomes easier. You first must be bad at something before becoming good.
Yeah, everybody was a beginner at some point. The richest men on the planet were beginners at whatever thing that they started at some point. The guy that's the biggest in your gym, one day he was the skinniest guy in the gym. Everybody was a beginner at some point. But those guys, what they all have in common is that they persevered, they went through the trials and tribulations, and they ended up where they ended up today.
And that idea of going through the trials and tribulations needs to be taught more. You wonder why the school system doesn't teach you that hardship is actually good, that failure means learning. They don't give us these mindset tools that are instrumental in becoming our best selves and growing. I wonder why that is, really.
Well, it goes back to the previous point. Just society, that's not aware of these things is much easier to control, because it's much easier to control a guy that's under your jurisdiction, under your control, because most people today, they work for somebody. They have an employer, for example, and whenever they step out of line, say something that's not, according to the rules, in quotations, they get fired and their lives are ruined.
And when you're at the will of someone else, you're a pawn, and you don't think uniquely or pursue the study of philosophy. More so, you're doing everything to please someone. And who knows, often those bosses are just living in their own religion of materialism, not looking to learn and grow, but going through every day quite narcissistically, just trying to get the next car and the next girl, which cars and girls are cool. I'm not saying you shouldn't have cars and girls, but they come not from chasing them. They come from you being your best and working on your business, working on your physical body, becoming intellectually able to articulate your thoughts, not from simply chasing money and, who knows, doing mischievous acts to earn money.
What I always say is that instead of chasing what you want, work on yourself until what you want starts to chase you.
That's how it comes, isn't it? When you chase things, they magically end up avoiding you. But when you put the wants on the back burner and you pursue individual growth, those wants magically are attracted.
Couldn't agree more, definitely. Couldn't have said it better myself, bro.
So what do you avoid doing that otherwise would sabotage your confidence?
That's a good one. I'm actually not sure. Like, the biggest thing that was ruining my confidence that I was doing back in the day was definitely porn consumption. But I'm past that at this point. I cut that out completely. I'm healed, so to speak. But that was definitely the biggest one back in the day. That was completely ruining my confidence from the ground up, gave me severe anxiety. I wouldn't say depression, but I wasn't feeling my best either. But I also wasn't even aware how much of a detriment it even was before I actually quit.
It's a form of addiction, like whether it's alcohol, pharmaceuticals, porn, junk food, any form of addiction is going to harm your ability to think at a high capacity. And if I suffered from the same thing, I don't know a single boy or man our age who at one point wasn't, and I'm not saying like we watch porn 20 times a day, but the point is that when you're a slave to something, when you cannot say no, your confidence dwindles. You need to become or understand that your big picture vision is more important than your urges and desires. So when we get these urges to indulge in the addictions, we need to develop the wisdom to pause in the moment and ask the question, hold up, is this aligned with who I am aiming to become? Is it working for my big picture vision? Or like porn is such a destructive thing that is being praised by so many brainwashed kids or young men. And oh man, it's upsetting for me to see when they don't understand what it's doing to their heads.
Bro, 8-year-old kids are watching porn these days. It's absolutely fucked to even think about.
Yeah, that makes me very speechless. Like I probably started not at 8 years old, but oh my God, that is, and that leads us back into the parenting pandemic, the lack of mentors. Even when mothers are doing well, they're doing their best. There's so many humans, adults, who are just a slave to the matrix. And I'm not saying that we should escape the matrix. Society is good in a way where we have four walls, we have warm clothes. The phone is a blessing and a curse, but it is a blessing. Oh, we have electricity and we can change the temperature on our water. But at the same time, humans are living in this materialistic religion, not teaching their younger generation that, hey, kid, what's most important should be your freedom, your trust, your integrity, your kindness, your generosity, and your health. After those things, go and get the cars and everything. But those should be your foundation.
Yeah, I don't know who said that, but there's a famous quote being thrown around, and it goes something like, your health is your wealth. No amount of money you can have can replace, having a great physique and a great overall health. Like that. If you were to put a price on a great aesthetic physique, that's something that would have cost, I don't know, $1 million if you could, you just click your fingers and just get it just like that.
You know what? It's funny you said it exactly like that, because that thought was in my head about a week ago. I was looking at myself, and not to be arrogant, but I said to myself, I would not sell my body for $1 million. Not a chance. Like, I know how much hours it took to get to the point, and I'd much rather earn the money going. Right now, I am not where I want to be financially, but the physical aesthetic body is so much more important to me than having my $1 million and having all my materialistic goods.
Yeah, nobody can give you back the pain of 1,000 workouts.
Exactly. And what you gain from putting yourself through the 1,000, the million workouts. It's not just the aesthetic look, but like we touched on before, your confidence. It is such a huge part of being the man you want to be. If you have a horrible body, oh man, even if you have all the money in the world, you're still lacking.
I always bring up this example, but somebody like Bill Gates, for example, I would never want to trade places with Bill Gates. Like he may be a billionaire, but he has man boobs, for example.
He's a soy guy.
100%.
Yeah, that reminds me, yesterday I watched a video of a vegan working out, and man, his arms look good, but he had titties, dude. It was, and I know that's what the seed oils do to you. It's mind blowing. Yeah, it pains me to think about that. Like, it literally it was not a chest that he had, but he had boobs, and it looked very bad.
I don't want to be mean to vegans, but honestly, I've never seen a vegan that doesn't look like a zombie. And,
It,
and besides that, being a vegan is a basic denial of reality, because the basic principle of reality is that in order for something to live, something needs to die. And being vegan is fundamentally denying reality.
that's a lot of what this woke culture is, denying reality. And I bring up this point. I haven't had any in-depth debates with vegans. And at the same time, I do not want to be rude to anyone. Whatever you are, we're all humans. And even if your beliefs don't align with mine, I still care for you in a manner that I wish you the best. And I would never want you to be suffering. But the bottom line of this vegan debate is nature is so much more, what's the word, man? Violent. That is the word. You see these foxes, these lions, how they rip apart animals. Monkeys get torn limb by limb from other baboons. Nature is violent. And for vegans to try to act like that is not the truth, you're not paying attention to reality.
You can wonder often if vegans might think that, the way an animal is in a jungle that dies in a way that they're on their deathbed, surrounded by family, mourning, crying, and all that. But that's not how it is. They just get ripped apart by some other animal, and that's it. That's the end of their existence.
And that doesn't mean that we are big supporters of this factory farming nonsense.
Obviously not. Definitely not.
Right. And I'm a huge fan of sustainable farming, the farms that really allow the cows and the chickens and the bison, the lamb, for all of them to roam. And there was a study done on cows that all they need to be happy is some free land and some companions. Like, they don't need too much to live a happy life, but it's a fine line. So being a vegan, you don't end up looking too good, but the factory farming is not something that I stand for either. So there's just a lot of things that always can be improved.
Yeah, there's nuance, definitely. Like the way that some animals are killed. I've watched a few documentaries on that, and it's honestly repulsive. It's not that meat eaters want animals to die in a cruel way where they are tortured or something. But yeah, I don't know what the solutions are when it comes to the farming problem.
I'm leaning towards the idea of, as much as we can, support the people who are doing it the right way, because there is growing corporations that pride themselves on sustainable farming. I think that's the solution in the short term, is to support those companies that are doing it the moral way, the humane way, rather than the documentaries get me triggered because the way that they label these things, they say cage free and free range. In reality, a free range chicken coop is like still a prison. And they use these labels in such a deceptive manner. It's just like the fucking food industry. They do the same thing with heart healthy on cereal. Well, actually, it has ingredients that cause heart disease. So you're kind of contradicting yourself by saying it's heart healthy. And that's the big, it gets to me how marketing agencies are so slick with their terms and their labels.
Well, having the word cereal and healthy in the same sentence in itself is a fallacy.
Exactly. you have these very good one-line ways of summarizing what I'm saying, and I really I admire it. But the whole wheat, the grains in general, I, I don't know if you're familiar with Carnivore MD, and I'm not some sort of cult guy who follows things and doesn't question things. There's definitely some ideas that I question of his, but for the most part, he just points out the bullshit in the average processed food, and I really love it.
I'm not sure who that is actually, Carnivore MD.
Well, look him up after this. His name's Paul Saladino, I believe that's how you pronounce it.
I
But
think I've heard of him, yeah.
yeah, look him up. And he does have a podcast as well. He speaks on a more simple diet of consuming your foundation of consumption should be fruit, honey, grass-finished meats, and that's about it. And he speaks a lot about how seeds have defense mechanisms in them. And when you try to consume things that have seeds in them, if they're not very colorful, kind of saying, hey, eat me, like a strawberry, an apple, banana, those look beautiful. They look like they want to be eaten. But then other things like grains or legumes, which is nuts, peanuts, almonds, they don't look as visually or aesthetically pleasing. And I'm not going to speak on the studies, but he literally went to school for 8 years on the topics. And I like to use his information as a good source.
That's pretty interesting, actually, that using the way that the food looks to determine as to how healthy it actually is. I've never thought about it that way, actually.
There's a lot of concepts or principles that I not live by, but embody. And they're more along the lines of conspiracy. But that whole label conspiracy is really, I think it's just to slander the free thinker's confidence.
I'm just going to say that any real man worth a damn is a conspiracy theorist at heart.
I love that. Man, this conversation was great, David. I really love this, and I'm grateful for your time. It was a pleasure to connect with you. Do you have anywhere that you would like to lead the audience for them to delve deeper into your content?
Well, you can find me at Twitter at Real Aesthetics One. And besides that, that's really it. That's where I operate, on Twitter mainly.
Yeah, Twitter, I'm really loving the atmosphere and learning how to connect and collaborate with more people. I thought it was not the best space for a long time, but I've been proven wrong.
Well, it might look like a lefty cesspool with pronouns and bio from the outside, but once you delve a little deeper, you can find some pretty damn good accounts.
Yeah, there's so many people doing their best to help and allow humans to learn and grow into their best self. So thank you so much. And, maybe in the future we could chat again, because this was just so enjoyable.
Pleasure is all mine, Justin.
Thanks, David. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Likewise, brother.
Thank you.